All right, so let's talk about this guy. That guy's name is Bruce Reinhart. And who is he? He's the judge that signed the warrant for Donald Trump. And everybody was saying, Trump appointed that guy anyway. Trump appointed that guy anyway. Ha ha. And they're all laughing. But turns out, no, Trump didn't appoint that guy. That guy is not appointed by a president. He's unelected. He's chosen by some kind of judicial board. I don't even need to go into it. The point is, fact check, even the USA Today knows that Bruce Reinhart, who approved the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago, was not appointed by Trump. The Post claim about Reinhart's tie, but guess what? He is tied to Jeffrey Epstein. That judge is tied to Jeffrey Epstein? Yes. The Post claim about Reinhart's ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein associate is accurate. This is from a USA Today fact check. They even admit that it's accurate because they can't deny it. Reinhart represented several of Epstein's employees, including Epstein's pilots and his scheduler, in 2008 as a defense attorney prior to becoming magistrate judge, according to Politico. The judge who approved FBI's Mar-a-Lago search represented clients linked to... Look at the subheadline here. The subheadline says, Bruce Reinhart worked as a federal prosecutor until January 1st, 2008, when a day later, he became a defense attorney representing employees of Epstein. So when he quit being a judge, a federal prosecutor, the next day, he went and defended the worst, biggest scum in the world. Couldn't wait. Jeffrey Epstein, the guy who's in bed with the CIA. That's who that prosecutor went to work for. So you know who that guy's working for. He works for the establishment. He is the establishment. And as we've already proven to you, the establishment hates Donald Trump, not because he's different than them, but because he's bad for their brand. People became aware that we were locking kids up in cages when Donald Trump people became aware we were bombing Muslims with a drone program that killed 90% innocent people when Donald Trump began. People become aware of the horrible stuff our government was doing, and that's what this is about. So also, the judge who signed off, he made anti-Trump posts on Facebook. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Facebook posts have now emerged illustrating how Reinhart has been anti-Trump from the beginning. In one post, Reinhart praised former congressman and civil rights activist John Lewis by quoting Robert Reich. By quoting Robert Reich, who said Donald Trump doesn't have the moral stature to kiss John Lewis's feet. That's the judge.
Why would that display moral stature if he kissed his feet?
I don't.
Reinhart, Epstein's Island got pretty weird. You know?
Yeah, they did get pretty weird. Reinhart also betrayed his disdain for Trump by revealing that he tried to ignore the then president-elect's tweets.
Try harder, dude.
In another post shared by Reinhart, the judge shared a viral video about white privilege from an account called Woke Folks.
It's a joke.
Reinhart's anti-Trump sentiments bolstered Trump's assertion that the raid on his property, carried out by the arrogant FBI agents who even ransacked Melania's wardrobe, was a coordinated political attack and a total abuse of justice. So what, Max, let me bring you in. What do you have to say about this judge? It's obvious to me this is a political hit piece. They got their corrupt judge, and he did what the establishment and the CIA and the FBI wanted him to do. What do you say?
I gotta be somewhat careful because I don't know anything about this judge except what I see out there that, I assume all of this is true. And I don't know how this judge was the one who was presented with the warrant. I know that the system is corrupt from my own experience, where I was falsely accused of a crime, a federal crime on federal property. I was falsely accused of assault while bringing food to... most of your viewers will remember that. And nothing happened for months and months and months. And the warrant was never issued until it finally was, like several months later, and a federal judge just signed off on it. It was such an obvious political move. And I just assume that the entire system is infested with political judges. And I think it's important when we're talking about all these different figures right now. There are so many figures in Russiagate that have been forgotten, and we're going to forget about Bruce Reinhart eventually. It's important to kind of remember the context for the entire campaign against Trump and how it was initiated through the FBI and what Spygate was. spies were actually inserted into the Trump campaign in 2016. One of them was named Stefan Halper. He was a history professor and an author who was actually a confidential asset for the CIA and FBI. And he was involved with various Trump foreign policy officials and reporting back to the FBI. And Christopher Steele, the author of the dodgy dossier, the Steele dossier, which is one of the biggest political hoaxes of our time, was on the FBI payroll for a time. So everyone remembers that. So there were all these transcripts of Halper and Steele that the FBI transcripts.
Hang on. There were all these transcripts that Halper and the FBI what?
That Halper and Steele that consisted of their conversations with the FBI. Okay. Very sensitive material, important material that the public should see to know how the security state was actually trying to meddle in an American election. And one of these figures, by the way, was not even an American. Christopher Steele is an MI6 agent. So Trump sought to declassify these documents. He signed an order, and his chief of staff, former White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, actually signed the order to declassify it. So in order to do that, they sent it back to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice held those documents and they never came out. So what's going on there? Could the Department of Justice been actually seeking these documents that Trump had in his possession relating to Spygate? I'm completely speculating, but either way, this is the background to understand this whole saga. And it starts with the FBI infiltrating Trump's campaign to attempt to affect the outcome of an American election.
And they've also been caught lying to the FISA court to get those wiretaps on Trump. And Trump was right when he said Obama tapped my phone. They did.
Max, what was you're bringing food? It cut out. What was the felony?
Oh, no, he was bringing food to the embassy when they wouldn't, the Venezuelan embassy, correct?
Yeah, and a right-wing pro Juan Guaido activist made up that I assaulted her, and the charges were dropped against me. But almost 7 months later, a federal judge issued a warrant for my arrest, and
wow.
my house was literally raided by police, a team of police, in order to get me. And I spent 48 hours in jail, and then I faced a charge of assault in federal court that was eventually dropped because they didn't want to produce their records.
There you go. Yeah. I remember when that happened.
They literally didn't want to produce the transcripts of Secret Service police that night, which would have revealed that the charges were fake. So a federal judge had access to those transcripts and probably knew it was fake, but it seems like they authorized it anyway against me. Why? Because they wanted to send a message to me and others.
That's right.
Who had gotten in the way of the attempt to seize the Venezuelan embassy on behalf of Juan Guaido, who is a CIA asset.
If it makes you feel better, Max, now Juan Guaido is assaulted out of restaurants.
Yeah, it was good to see that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I swear to God, if the Democrat, it's the Democrat and the establishment. It's not the Democrats. It's the establishment, meaning the Cheneys, the Pelosi's, the McConnells, the Bidens. That's and Wall Street. That's the establishment. Right, so it's left and right. It's Republican and Democrat. And
the adults in the room, you mean?
The adults, yeah. And so it's obvious that they can't beat Trump at the ballot box, and so they have to do all this nefarious shit to try to make sure he can't run against them, because they're so corrupt and they're such enemies of the people that people will vote for a game show host before they'll vote for a Democrat or a Republican, and they know it, and they know that they're not going to change. That's why they
or a comedian,
right? Can you imagine if I ran? Do you see what they're doing to Trump? Imagine what they would do to me if I ran for president. They'd fucking ransack my house. You don't think they'd put me in fucking jail? Of course they would. I'd be put in jail if I ran for president.
You know what was great about
that would happen. They handcuffed Jill Stein for 8 hours. They handcuffed her. She just showed up to a debate. Go ahead.
They'd run an op against you to start, and they would, try to discredit you through gray propaganda, and then it would escalate from there if you got more popular. But that's the fear. The fear is someone like you steps out there and gives people hope, people who have lost hope and people who fought for this country, or people who sacrificed themselves as firefighters and lost their jobs because they wouldn't go along with the mandate, people who see that the system is completely rigged. The mask is completely lifting on the empire right now, and more people are seeing it, but they have nowhere to go in the two-party system. And as soon as someone steps out there and gives them hope and gives them somewhere to go that can actually break this corporate duopoly, that person has to be destroyed. And so and I know so many people watching this show feel this way. And so that's why we see all this talk about violence, because people are kept in this under this thick atmosphere system, and eventually some whack jobs or people who are just don't know how to react otherwise will lash out. And that reinforces the power of the security state. It wants that. It doesn't want hope.
That's
right. It doesn't want anyone to give them hope.
And also the Black Lives Matter protests and all those riots and all those things that happened all through that summer. We saw there were bricks let out. Of course, there's often people from the security state or police that start the vandalism. That's not
controlled burn, man.
It's not a secret, right? That's not. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is stuff that we all understand happens all the time. In fact, we've caught them doing it on video during the Black Lives Matter protests. We caught cops on video breaking windows.
I mean, I've personally dealt with police spies, Jimmy, because I've been in various social movements, anti-war politics. During the Venezuelan Embassy Collective, that whole episode I was talking about, there was someone who infiltrated our group, posed as one of us, and was seeking to instigate violence constantly, trying to push various activists to commit violent acts and do illegal things. And that's just the MO of the security state. And
this is a good
going back to I've seen it happen at so many protests, going back to the anti-Iraq war protests, where I would see masked figures come into the crowd outside the Republican convention in New York, 2004, and set a fire in the middle of the street, and just disappear. What is Antifa? What even is it anymore?
No,
I mean, first
right?
of all, it's like the street enforcement wing of the Democrats. But it's the easiest group in the world, Black Bloc, to infiltrate. You just put on a mask and do some crazy shit. So that's just at a small scale what the security state aims to do.
I mean, look at how they've been having these guys dress up in khakis, and they put masks on, and they put them in the back of a U-Haul, and they say these are all right wingers, and the FBI stopped them. And then the same thing happened at that Charlie Kirk thing where he had those kids, the Freedom, whatever, and they had Nazis show up. And these are all feds that are doing
no
this.
Tattoos whatsoever.
They have no
real Nazis.
And they all wore
the plot against Gretchen Whitmer, plot against John Bolton, which is said to be an Iranian IRGC plot, involved a paid confidential FBI asset who.
And so if you don't know if you don't know about that with John Bolton now says that the Iran has put a hit out on him, and at the same time Salman Rushdie gets attacked by someone who says he's Iranian, right, or that the media says is Iranian. And so to me this is all suspicious. This is exactly what the CIA and the security state does to create an op. This is what they do, and I'm so anything. I'll give you the last word, Max.
Well, on Rushdie, I mean, there definitely were people who wanted to kill him.
There definitely are people who want to kill him. But why right now? Right now it happened? Right now when John Bolton is out there saying the same fucking thing? Come on.
Well, when the Iran deal is being renegotiated and there is a massive campaign to escalate with Iran, I have seen no evidence because we barely have found out who this character is, but he is a Lebanese immigrant who lives in New Jersey. And what we do know is that the FBI has manufactured hundreds of phony terror plots and even incited in Garland, Texas, fanatics who supported ISIS to attack a drum. Start over.
I'm sorry. They ignited extremists in Texas to do what?
FBI agents incited ISIS fanatics who were mentally disturbed in Texas to attack a right-wing Draw Muhammad event in
I
Garland,
remember
Texas,
that.
and they even followed them in the car behind to make sure that they attacked it. And then there were like state troopers and tactical teams waiting to cut these guys down.
So what you're saying is that what I proposed, they have a history of doing.
There's a history there, and so you are not a paranoid psychopath for proposing the possibility that this character could have had contact with federal agents, and I don't know if he did, and I'm certain that there are many people who wanted Rushdie dead for insulting the prophet.
Yes.
And it's an attack on free speech. We all condemn it.
All right. Well, Max Blumenthal, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for that the great tweet thread. Everybody should go check that out. I've retweeted it on my page. Hey, we're coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Detroit, Los Angeles, Spokane, Tacoma, Denver. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all our tickets for all our live shows. See you there.